Dumela, but Molweni, we're in the right province, Molweni. Hope everyone's well and lunch was good. I get the shift after lunch when people's stomachs are full, so they won't be paying much attention, which is great. We've had quite an interesting couple of days, obviously. Starting off on site last night, and everyone traveled safely. It was good to see everybody. Thank you very much for everybody that's been here. And then this morning was quite heavy in terms of information from all the different speakers. So we're going to do a bit of a twist right now. So I'll do a small introduction in terms of our process internally. And then Phil will come up here and just talk through our asset management tool that he's been instrumental in helping us build. We are not yet at the place where we ultimately are going, but it's been a fantastic process co-creating the system with Phil. So where I'll start is, some of our LPs held us to account yesterday asking, when you guys started, when you were busy doing DD, you told us about the system that you've got, you told us about the platform that you've got access to, etc., which was obviously through the conversations that we were having at the time with Vukile, which through the first, I'd say, 18 months of the fund life, we were quite instrumental then in utilizing their back end, which they'd built over many, many years. What's since transpired is, of course, that we've had to build our own system. We've taken decisions to build our own system internally, and that's across the board. So even our property and tenant level information from our side is our own. We own the system, and it's under our own license. So those are deliberate decisions that we've taken, that we'd like to own the data. At the end of the day, they say that gives us a whole host of information that we can utilize going forward. So with that said then, I'm just going to highlight, Ben did speak to the slide a bit earlier, just around our processes at every stage. And what's important then is to give you guys a flavor of what happens in the team. Firstly, we have deal forum every Monday as a deal team. So we sit, we discuss new transactions, whether they be developments or potential new acquisitions. We go through them on a Monday, and they could be, at that point in time, just ideas, right? So we'll take those transactions through. Generally, the party that has originated the transaction will then take us through the investment opportunity. It does get filtered through our asset management team, being Wasima and myself, who will then put short packs together and be able to track them over a period of time to ensure that what comes in, we can track exactly what came in, and if transactions then don't go through to fruition, then we can also keep a track record of which ones we didn't do and the reasons that we didn't do them. So the first thing is we have our deal forum on a weekly basis. Ben spoke a bit earlier around meeting religiously on Mondays that we've been doing for the last over 5 years now. That continues. So we generally start with Exco in the morning, and then we have our deal forum in the afternoon. So just the process around pre-investment stage on a deal. So here we're talking about sourcing prior to acquisition. Our process involves quite a host, a number of different steps. We look at, like any other property fund, I guess, you look at your normal demographic and market data. If it's a greenfield development, of course, the likes of Fernridge, etc., will do those. If it's an existing asset, you can also get those studies, but of course, other data is more useful for existing assets that are already producing income, etc. So we go through that. Ben did mention quite briefly about our ESG process. Of course, our ESG DD is critical. So that's a very important process that we go through. And that encapsulates quite a bit of things around crime, around climate. A new one that we started putting into our processes now is matters around climate, which has started coming through in our latest DDs that we've conducted. So our last 2 DDs now include climate. And then post that, of course, we also do valuations as normal valuations, which are outsourced third-party valuations. We go through the legal DD. We've just gone through a process now of quite an extensive legal and financial DD on a potential investment we're looking at. We'll look at a legal DD, we'll look at, and that also looks into all the underlying leases, all the underlying contracts that a property may have. If the property is leasehold, etc., you'll go through all that underlying work to make sure that you understand the investment that you're about to make. Then we go through the financials. Of course, then that also incorporates modeling into our own financial models. Ben did mention earlier just how we do have so we have two main financial models that we work with. One is a deal-by-deal financial model that looks at a particular transaction, how much debt we're looking to put into it, what the underlying assumptions are for that asset, and that we then ultimately take through to our investment committee. The second one is our fund model, our holistic fund model, which takes all of our assets and it's forward-looking. Again, it makes a number of assumptions around gearing, it makes a number of assumptions around escalations, et cetera, and of course, overall, broad parameters around all the underlying assumptions that we make. Then, of course, a critical one, which is part of the process that you guys went through yesterday, is site visits. So we spend a lot of time on sites throughout the process. So we'll go and spend time on sites, we'll go and spend time in the communities, we'll go and spend time with the municipalities, etc., to try and get an understanding how, firstly, the shopping patterns happen in that particular area, as well as to understand who the key role players are from our own point of view. Of course, looking at something on Google can look quite enticing until you get on site. So we spend quite a bit of time on site. I know yesterday there was some jokes around us potentially using helicopters to travel around our sites to do DDs. Part and parcel of what we have to do through driving is it does give you a different sense in terms of the geography and the demographics of the areas that you're operating in. A lot of the time you'll find information on sites that you weren't even looking for. So you are potentially going towards something else and you'll find something else along the way that is potentially more interesting or can provide you with a bit more information from that can feed into your overall thesis. So site visits are critically important throughout our process. So that's as we go through the sourcing process and then we go through acquisition. So once we've then approved a transaction through initial deal forum, it then has approval then to go to IC. And our process works on a unanimous basis. So we need all members of our deal team to approve, and it's all different disciplines. So all the 6 of us approve a transaction, and once it's approved, then it can proceed to investment committee. The initial stage of investment committee is our approval to DD. And then the second stage of it then is the final IC approval once the due diligence process is complete and we're in a position that we'd like to pursue a transaction. So that is then going into the acquisition phase. And here, based on initially the underlying DD that you've done, you may have certain corrective action plans that come out of the DD that you've identified, certain things that need to be corrected, certain things that need to be improved in the property, or certain value additions that you think you can make to the underlying investment, which you'll try and incorporate as part of your investment proposal up front. The second thing then is where we're going to spend a bit more time shortly is around your proactive management, specifically then through utilizing, of course, systems, but as importantly for us is immersion. Making sure that you understand the parties that you're dealing with and the communities that you're dealing with at all times. So we're going to spend a bit more time now doing a bit of a demo on the actual on our latest system that we are building, and then finally, as part of this process, then we look at our stakeholder engagement, and that is as important, of course, for us throughout the process. This looks at your tenants. I mean, you start engaging with tenants prior to investment already. That looks at your service providers that are providing services to the property. That looks at any government institutions, etc., that may be involved in your approvals, and or municipalities where your properties may reside. Of course, shoppers as well are an important demographic here. So to try and get an overall understanding of all your stakeholders that form part and parcel of that potential investment. And ultimately, all of this is to try and achieve what we're here for, right? Ultimately is to try and create value through understanding your properties, through understanding what your shoppers' needs are, through understanding then where you can potentially look to improve, where your key risks lie within each underlying investment, and then try and manage those in a proactive manner. So what we're going to look at now is effectively, as I mentioned, a tool that we've been building, which is a few months away from final from final execution, right, Phil? So we've reached our first initial sign-off in terms of our processes now, and we've moved into the second stage of development, which is providing quite a bit of insight into the underlying all the underlying processes that we undergo. Just to give you a very high level sense of some of the systems that we utilize in the business. From a property and tenant level, of course we use MRI, MDA, the whole old MDA. Our ESG reporting tool is called Proof. Our utilities platform, Kudu spoke briefly earlier about Proof, Fungi as well as Bolide. Our utilities platform is Fungi. On an infrastructure side, of course, we've got a partnership with Bolide, so the Bolide concierge comes into effect quite aggressively there. As they said, they're in building phases right now, and in the new year, we'll be in a position that we can start utilize and incorporating that into our platforms. Fernridge, of course, from market studies and catchment analysis. And then we've got the fund level reporting as well, where we have services such as our fund administrator, JTC, and of course, on a quarterly basis, our auditors then get involved in the accounts as well. And then benchmarking is an important one, which is not yet fully integrated. At the moment, we're integrating benchmarking mainly from an MSCI side, which looks at the property. We haven't yet got to the stage where Belinda's wonderful work is being incorporated properly into our first reporting platform, as well as then into our day-to-days. So that's where we're going, and ultimately the underlying tool that we are building is called Mimir. We are currently using it as we speak. So between myself and Masima and the team, we've got access to it. We utilize it on an ongoing basis, but we do have support from Phil and his team, pretty much on a continuous basis, assisting us to ensure that the system works properly. So ultimately, as I said, as we're working towards looking to exit some of the investments, is to try and make sure that we're having a measurable impact and creating value for all stakeholders. And we believe that the measures that we are taking from initiation of the transactions all the way through management and ultimately getting towards exit is assisting us in that process. And what we've already seen is there can be some pricing benefits, of course, of incorporating impact through your investment thesis throughout. We are in conversations right now with one of our financial partners in terms of starting to benefit from some margin from reporting some sustainability metrics that we're already incorporating already. So that can start becoming some benefits for, of course, for our investors in the fund. With that said then, I'd like to introduce Phil, who is then going to take us through a quick demo, so that we can have a bit more understanding of what it looks like and what we're trying to build. So Phil, what do you say, Phil? Phil is anyone that's in the property industry is aware of Phil, right? Anyone that's been in the business for a while knows of him, his work that he's done over many, many years, over 3 decades in the industry. He's been an incredible partner through this journey that we are currently going through. It's always great when you find somebody who believes in the mission as much as you do. Sometimes he pushes us to report earlier than what we would want. Sometimes he's pushing us to push the boundaries further than what we initially thought when we were coming up with our thinking. So Phil, over to you. Thank you very much.